Okay, guys, now let's go through the 21st question. During a cardiac cycle, stimulation of which of the following structures of the human heart results in emptying of atria? Okay, so unlike any other organs in the body, the human heart works on their own. They have their own electrical conduction system which generate impulses which travels through different parts of the heart, causing the contraction of the atria and ventricle and causes the heart to pump. So let us first look at the cardiac cycle, then all the nodes and the bundles, then see what is the right answer. So here we had to find out which structure causes the emptying of the atria. So when the blood enters the atrium, the SA node is triggered. This yellow color part is the SA node. It is triggered. When the SA node is triggered, it starts to generate impulses. So these impulses travel to the left atrium and also through the right atrium and causes them to contract. This contraction causes the blood to flow into the ventricles from the atria, emptying the atria. So here we found the answer. It is the SA node because SA node is the one that initiates the impulses and causes the contraction of the atrium, which causes the blood to move from the atrium to the ventricles. So I'll highlight it. Anyways, let's take a look at all the other structures present and their function here quickly. So when the blood is passing from the atrium to the ventricle, at the same time simultaneously the impulse is passed from the SA node to the AV node, and the AV node acts like a red light. So AV node only gives the green signal for impulses to pass only when the atria is fully emptied. So it delays for like 1 second, sorry 0.1 second. So in this 0.1 second the atria is fully emptied. So after that the AV node passes the impulse through the bundle branches into the Purkinje fibers, which causes contraction of the ventricles. So the contraction of the ventricles causes the blood to pass through the aorta and the pulmonary arteries. So that's it there. So the answer is the SA node. And now let's go through the second question. Sorry, 22nd question. Okay. Which of the following statements regarding respiration of men is correct? First one, elevated blood pH can increase the depth and rate of lung ventilation. Okay, in other words, they are saying increased blood pH can increase the rate of ventilation. Okay, when is the rate of ventilation increased? The rate of ventilation is increased during high metabolic activities such as exercising and running. So during this activity, CO2 starts building up in the body. So now we have to find out when the CO2 starts building up in the body, does the blood pH increase or decrease? So let's find that out. So if the blood pH increase, this is the right answer. But anyways, let's take a look at it. So when the CO2 starts building up in the body, sorry, in the blood, it reacts with water to form bicarbonate. So CO2 in the blood reacts with water, H2O, to form carbonic acid. Sorry, as I told bicarbonate earlier, but it is carbonic acid. So this carbonic acid, in wrong spelling, I guess. Okay, carbonic acid, right. Okay, so this carbonic acid, which is formed by carbon dioxide and water, dissociates into HCO3, which is bicarbonate, and hydrogen ions. Okay. So here we can find out as CO2 concentration increases in the blood, the H plus concentration also increases. So we have learned in chemistry, as the hydrogen ion concentration increases, the pH actually reduces. So as the pH reduces, the rate and depth of lung ventilation increases. So this should be the other way around. So this is the wrong answer and we can eliminate it. So the second answer, decrease in the pressure in the lungs in relation to outside air facilitate expiration. Okay. So they are saying during expiration, or in other words exhalation, the air in the lungs should have low pressure than the air outside. So is this correct? Let's take a look at it. Like if you take air, air travels from usually high pressure to low pressure, right? So that's why during inhalation, the lungs have low pressure and the outside air has a very high pressure, sorry, slightly high pressure. So because of this, air enters into the lungs. And during exhalation, it's the other way around. The outside air have a slightly higher pressure than in the lungs. Sorry, the lungs have a slightly higher pressure than the outside air. So because of this, air moves out of the body. But here they are saying, for the air to move outside of the body, the pressure in the lung should be higher than in the pressure outside, the pressure in the air. So which is wrong. So we can eliminate this answer. So let's go to the third answer. Sensors in the lung tissue contribute to prevent overexpansion of lungs during inspiration. Okay. So we have learned that lung tissues does contain sensors that prevent over expansion of the lungs. So these sensors sense when the lung is over expanding to prevent it from damaging, and these sensors send signals to the brain. So the brain inhibits further inhaling. So this is the right answer and I'll highlight it. Now let's go through the fourth answer. High surface tension of the fluid that coat the alveolar lining facilitates external respiration. So we know the alveoli is lined by a fluid. So they are saying this fluid facilitates external respiration, but in reality, the fluid helps in gas exchange. So this fluid helps the smooth diffusion between oxygen for smooth diffusion of oxygen from the alveoli into the blood and the diffusion of carbon dioxide from the blood to the alveoli. So it doesn't facilitate external respiration, it facilitates gas exchange. So that is the wrong answer again. So let's go to the fifth one. Higher partial pressure of CO2 in the blood reaching tissues in systemic capillaries then in tissues facilitates internal respiration. Okay. So we know internal respiration occurs between the tissues and the blood. So another way, external respiration occurs between alveoli in the blood and internal respiration occurs between tissue in the blood. So this is where CO2 in the tissue diffuses from the tissues into the blood and oxygen in the blood diffuses into the tissues. So here they are saying for internal respiration to occur, the blood should have higher partial pressure of carbon dioxide than in the tissues. So as we know, gases travel through partial pressures. So a gas usually travels from high partial pressure to low partial pressure. But in the sentence, they are telling the blood have higher partial pressure of carbon dioxide than in the tissues. So if it is that way, will carbon dioxide travel from the tissues to the blood? Think about it. No, right? Because carbon dioxide only travels from high partial pressure to low partial pressure and not the other way around. So this is wrong because then it doesn't facilitate internal respiration. So we can eliminate that answer. So now let's go through the 23rd question. Select the correct statement regarding human kidneys. The first statement says left kidney is situated slightly lower than the right kidney on the posterior abdominal wall. Okay. So we know one of the kidney is slightly lower than the other kidney, but we don't know which kidney it is. So now let's take a look at it. So if you take the liver, The liver is on the right side of the body, right? So I'll draw it. So this is the liver. The liver is on the right side of the body. So below the liver, we have the kidneys. So this is the left kidney. I don't know whether it will look like a bean shape. Okay. So this is the left kidney. But due to the position of the liver, the right kidney is slightly below the left kidney. Because the liver takes a bit of a space, not much. So one kidney is slightly lower, so that is the right kidney. So they are saying the left kidney is situated slightly lower than the right kidney, which is wrong because the right kidney is situated slightly below the left kidney. So we can eliminate the first answer. Now let's go to the second answer. There's a majority of nephrons in the kidney are juxtamedullary nephrons. Okay, there are two types of nephrons, as we know, the juxtamedullary nephrons and the cortical nephrons. But what are the functions of these nephrons? If you take cortical nephrons, they have the usual function of the nephron. They are involved in secretion, reabsorption, and ultrafiltration. But juxtamedullary nephrons are only involved in concentration of urine. So we don't need much of them. But the statement says majority of nephrons are juxtamedullary nephrons. But it is usually the other way around. We need the majority of nephrons should be cortical nephrons, right? So again, we can eliminate this answer because the majority of nephrons are cortical nephrons, not juxtamedullary nephrons. Let's go to the third answer. So there's a kidneys contain sensors which can detect increase in blood pressure. Okay. In the juxtaglomerular apparatus, or in other words, we call it the JGA. In the JGA, we have sensors, but do they detect increase in blood pressure? I hope you guys remember the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system or the RAS system. So RAS system detects low pressure, not high pressure. So due to detection of low pressure in the kidney, renin is released. So renin causes vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction increases blood pressure. So here they are saying kidneys contain sensors which detect increase in blood pressure, but in reality they only detect decrease in blood pressure. So again we can eliminate the third answer. So the fourth answer is kidneys can regulate blood pH by reabsorption through nephrons. Okay. There are only two ions that are used to regulate blood pH. One is the bicarbonate ion HCO3 and the hydrogen ions. But hydrogen ions are only secreted through the nephron and they are not reabsorbed. But bicarbonate ions are reabsorbed. So here they are saying kidneys can regulate blood pH by reabsorption of H plus through nephron. So as I told, H plus cannot be reabsorbed, it can only be secreted. Only bicarbonate can be reabsorbed. Always remember that. So again we can eliminate this answer. So all four answers are wrong, so it should be the fifth one. So let's take a look at it. Kidneys play a role in the production of red blood cells. Okay. We know kidneys have erythropoietin. So erythropoietin is a hormone that is involved in the production of red blood cells. So this is the right answer. I'll highlight it. Now let's go through the next question. Okay. 24th question says neurotransmitters are released into the synaptic cleft in chemical synapses as a response to which of the following? Okay, we know what synapses are. So synapses is a junction that allows two neurons to communicate, allows neurons to pass impulses from one neuron to the next neuron. So here they are saying, okay, so we know between two neurons there is a gap, that is the synaptic cleft. So because neurons are not together and they are separated, they need some way to pass the impulse. So this is where the neurotransmitters come in. So from the axon terminal, the end of one neuron, let me draw it so that you guys will understand it. Okay. So this is one neuron, and this is the axon terminal of that neuron, which is the end part of the neuron. So impulses travel this way. Okay, let me draw the arrow. Okay. Impulses travel this way, and here we have another neuron. So we call this the postsynaptic neuron. Okay. So here we have synaptic vesicles containing neurotransmitters. So there are a lot of these here. So these contains the neurotransmitters. Okay. So when the impulse travel, when they come to the axon terminal, the axon terminal depolarizes, which means this part becomes really negative. So when they become very negative, calcium ions from the outside enters inside the neuron. So when the calcium ions enter, they give a small push to the synaptic vesicles. So the synaptic vesicles move forward and fuse with the uh, presynaptic membrane. So this is what we call the presynaptic membrane. They fuse with the presynaptic membrane and presynaptic membrane. I think I can't erase that. Okay, forget that part. Fuse with the presynaptic membrane and start releasing neurotransmitters. So these are neurotransmitters. So these neurotransmitters travel to the synaptic cleft and reach the postsynaptic neuron. So this is the next neuron. They call it the postsynaptic neuron. So here, when the neurotransmitters attach, they start action potential and the impulse travels through this neuron. Okay. So question asks, okay, as a response to which of the following? So increase in CA2 plus concentration in the synaptic cleft. As I told earlier, synaptic CA2 plus is in the presynaptic terminal and not in the synaptic cleft, which is the gap. So we can eliminate this. So decrease in Na2 plus concentration in the synaptic cleft. So there is no sodium in the synaptic cleft. Again, we can eliminate that answer. Third one, increase in K plus. Again, there is no K plus in the potassium in the presynaptic terminal. You can eliminate that. And the fourth answer, increase in Ca2 plus concentration in the presynaptic terminal. So this is the correct answer because this is the presynaptic terminal and Ca2 plus increases here. So I'll highlight it. So that's the answer. Now let's go through the 25th question. Okay. So now let's go through the 25th question. Which of the following mechanoreceptors are present close to the surface of the human skin? So we know mechanoreceptors are sensory receptors that are sensitive to light, touch, and pressure. So we know the mechanoreceptors that are closest to the surface of the skin are touch receptors. So in this, let us see which one of these are touch receptors. So we know free nerve endings are touch receptors, so A is correct. Pacini and corpuscle, so these are not touch receptors, so these are pressure receptors. So we can eliminate the B answer and see corpuscles. Yes, they are touch receptors. And Merkel disc, so Merkel disc are also touch receptors. So the answer should be A, C, and D. So it is the fourth one again, so I'll highlight it. Okay, guys, now let's go through the 26th question. Which of the following changes would occur in the human body when deep body temperature drops below the normal body temperature? Basically, they are asking what happens during cold conditions. And they have given three changes that occur in the body. First one involving the arterioles, then the hair erector muscles, and finally the adrenaline level in the blood. First, let's take a look at what happens in the arterioles in the skin. During cold conditions, the arterioles constrict. When they constrict, they move away from the surface of the skin. Because of this, less heat is radiated outside and more heat is trapped inside the body. Okay, so I'll highlight all the correct answers here. We have the second one, constrict, and fourth one is also constrict of the arterioles, and the fifth one. Now let's take a look at the hair erector muscles in the skin. Okay, we know during cold conditions, the hair erector muscles contract and stands up straight. We also call this goosebumps. Because of this, a layer of air is trapped in the hair, which forms an insulating layer and traps heat inside the body. But when it comes to human, this insulating layer is very thin. But in other animals with very thick fur, they have a very large insulating layer, and it will really help them to regulate the body temperature using the hair erector muscles. And in here, the hair erector muscles contract. So I'll mark all the answers. They have contract first one, third one, the fifth one. So the answer either got to be the fourth one or the fifth one. So anyways, let's take a look at the adrenaline level in the body. We know another one of the mechanism of the body is to increase the metabolic rate of the body during cold conditions. When the metabolic rate increases in the body, more heat energy is released. In this way, more heat is trapped inside the body. One way of increasing the metabolic activity is by releasing adrenaline in the body, by increasing the production of adrenaline. Also remember there's another way, that is by the release of the hormone thyroxine. And here we increase the level of adrenaline. Again, I'll mark it here. Again, increase. As I said, it's got to be either fourth one or the fifth one. The fourth one have all the answers, so it's got to be the fourth one. So I'll highlight it fully. Okay. Now let's go through the 27th question. Select the correct statement regarding a sexual reproduction of animals. We know there are three types of asexual reproduction. First one is budding, then we have fragmentation and regeneration, and finally we have parthenogenesis. Now let's go through all the statement. Female workers of honeybees develop through parthenogenesis. First, let us take a look at what this parthenogenesis is. So, parthenogenesis is a type of asexual reproduction where an organism is developed only through an unfertilized egg cell. So in parthenogenesis, fertilization doesn't need to take place and the egg and the sperm doesn't need to fuse together. Does the female workers of honeybees develop this way? We know only the male bees, which are called drones, develop through parthenogenesis, but female workers of honeybees, they develop through fertilization involving a sperm and an egg. So we can eliminate this answer. Now let's go to the second one. Some platyhelminths reproduce asexually by regeneration. Even though most of the platyhelminths reproduce asexually, there are some platyhelminths that reproduce asexually by regeneration. Again, regeneration means development of a new, complete new organism through a fragment of another organism. So this is the right answer and I'll highlight it. Anyways, let's go through all the other three answers. Budding of Hydra relies on mitotic and meiotic cell divisions. We know budding is a form of asexual reproduction, and asexual reproduction, only same types of cells are there. So how same types of cells are produced? It's by mitosis, not meiosis. So because of that, there's no meiosis cell division. We can eliminate that answer. Let's go through the fourth one. Fragmentation allows some annelids to produce varied genotypes from a single parent. We know one of the features of asexual reproduction is having little to no genetic variation. They can't have variation because they don't undergo meiosis cell division, because only in meiosis genetic variation occurs. But in mitosis, the same type of cells are produced, and fragmentation is a type of asexual reproduction. So there's less genetic variation. Because of that, we can eliminate this answer too. The fifth answer, in changing environmental conditions, asexual reproduction would be more advantageous to Nigerians. Okay. We know changing environment conditions is one of the disadvantages of asexual reproduction because asexual reproduction, as I told, there is no genetic variation. When there is no genetic variation, the organism or the species can't adapt to specific conditions. When they can't adapt to specific conditions, they can't survive on that specific condition. Because of that, in changing environmental conditions, they are really weak. And it is not an advantage to Nigerians. On the opposite, it is a disadvantage. Again, we can eliminate the fifth answer. The only correct answer is the second one. Now let's go to the 28th question. Accessory glands associated with the human male reproductive system and features of their secretion are given below. Okay, they have given all the glands, the prostate glands, the bulbourethral glands, and the seminal vesicles. Okay, let's go through the order of secretion. We know initially the first thing that is secreted is from the bulbourethral glands. Okay, before ejaculation, the bulbourethral glands release clear alkaline mucus. This clear alkaline mucus neutralizes the urethra before the sperm start to travel, and also they produce mucus which lubricates the urethra. Because of that, B goes with P. I'll match it. And second, the prostate glands. The prostate glands secrete thick alkaline secretion containing mucus and fructose. We know the fructose provides the energy for the sperm cell, and mucus, the alkaline secretion containing mucus, provides allows the sperm to survive in the acidic vaginal conditions. Again, we can measure that. Then the seminal vesicles. Seminal vesicles, yes, they secrete thin milky secretions containing citrate and anticoagulant enzymes. So these anticoagulant enzymes inhibit the coagulation of the semen, and citrate provides nutrition to the sperms. So I'll highlight it. So the correct answer should have A and Q, B and P, and C and R. So A, Q, so it is the fourth one, and I'll highlight it. Okay, let's go through the 29th question now. Some features of three vertebrae of men labeled as P, Q, and R observed by a student are given below. Okay, they have given three vertebrae, so we have to find what are these vertebrae. First one, a large body and a prominent spinous process. Okay, we know the only vertebrae with a large body is the the lumbar vertebrae, because the lumbar vertebrae is found on the lower back and they have to carry the whole weight of the body. For this reason, they have a large body and they also have a spinous process. So this is the lumbar vertebrae and this is the spinous process and this is the body. They do have a large body. Because of that, the first one is the lumbar vertebrae. I'll mark it. Okay, Q. No distinct body or spinous process. We know the only vertebrae that doesn't have a distinct body or the spinous process is the first cervical vertebrae, which we call the atlas. So here is the atlas. We can see they don't have a prominent body and they don't have a spinous process. They can't have a spinous process because the atlas is involved in the movement of the head. When they are involved in the movement of the head, if they have a spinous process, they will block that movement. For that reason, they don't have a spinous process. So the Q is first cervical vertebrae, which is the atlas vertebrae. Then the R, articulation facets on the body and transverse processes. We know the vertebrae that has articulation facets on the body is the thoracic vertebrae. Okay, so this is the thoracic vertebrae. We can see, let me mark it. Yes, they do have articulation facets here. So these are all articulation facets in the thoracic vertebrae. And this is the transverse process, this long outgrowth part. So this is the transverse process. So they do have a transverse process. Okay, so this is correct. Sorry, so R is thoracic vertebrae and I'll write it. Okay, so the correct answer is the fourth one because P is the lumbar vertebrae and Q is the first cervical vertebrae and R is the thoracic vertebrae. So I'll highlight it. So let's go through the 30th question. Which of the following processes are present in the temporal bone of man? We know the temporal bone has three processes. First is the zygomatic process, which connects the zygomatic bone to other parts of the skull. Then we have the styloid process. So the styloid process provides an anchor for the tongue and the throat area. Then we have the mastoid process. So mastoid process is found behind the ear, which allows for articulation with the neck muscles. Same with the styloid process. Styloid process is also found behind the ear. So four processes are present in the temporal bone. So these are the three processes. So it should be the second answer. So I'll highlight it.